Mount Etna is trembling, unusually high earthquake, or let's say the strongest earthquake that we have seen at Etna in a long time. And why could this be critical, guys? Is that the last push for the collapsing flank of Etna that is sliding into the sea and could cause a tsunami as devastating as you can believe it in this area? And not only local, this could affect a vast area. Residents felt Etna trembling multiple times, multiple earthquakes, but of course the magnitude 3.3 stands out. And at the same time, we also had a magnitude 5.1 off the coast of Sicily. But let's dive into this because this is really interesting, guys, and it's a little bit scary because, you know, when something is unstable or unstable, and Etna's flank is, as you see here, it has broken off, and we've seen like landslides like this in fjords, in Alaska, in Bluton. When the mountainside is already cracked like that, it takes a little bit and boof, it comes down with full force. And of course, if that is in the water, which it is, it causes a tsunami. We've seen it in the fjords. In the narrow fjords, it has that bathtub effect where it had created last year a tsunami as high as 1,700 feet. That's not going to happen here, but still very, very threatening. And if something is already that broken off, if you have earthquakes all the time and it keeps shaking, especially the larger earthquakes, already fractured rocks get fractured even more. And the highest risk is a sudden collapse. Of course, as you can imagine, if you have a full bathtub and you jump in there with all your body power and weight, the tsunami you create and the flooding is heavier than if you go step by step, one leg first, and then, you know what I mean. So what is happening at Etna? I have reported about this. They have installed new measuring systems and they have confirmed that there is a landslide on the southeastern slope of Mount Etna, the volcano. So the volcanic flank that is breaking off is even moving underwater. And that's why this possible tsunami might be a consequence. How did they find out about this underwater movement? Well, they used a new sound-based surveying network. And in 2018, when they conducted measurements, underwater measurements at that slope, they found out that within 8 days, it had already moved approximately 4 centimeters, guys. So this landslide is definitely happening. Is it happening slowly or with a sudden collapse? That is always a possibility. Again, if you watch my channel, if you've seen all the landslides, I have reported about this, and especially Bluton, because we have images of what happened there. There you see, and they were hoping, they thought, nah, this thing is coming down step by step. We don't think it's coming down as a whole. Nature did otherwise. It did come down as a whole with full force. And 4 centimeters within 8 days, guys, that's a lot. So if we have a sudden and rapid collapse of the whole flank, that could trigger a tsunami with serious consequences for the entire region. And guys, Etna is Europe's most active volcano. So all these eruptions already also vibrate the whole mountain. And the good thing is, since it is the most active volcano, it's also intensively monitored by scientists and authorities. And satellite measurements have shown that for some time, that the volcano's southeastern slope is slowly sliding towards the sea, above water and below water. Other slopes seem to remain stable. And when the whole thing got scarier is when they found out this is not only happening above water, this is also happening below. Because below the water, you cannot measure the movement with satellite or GPS measurements, right? So that's why they used a new survey network that is part of the GeoMar and GeoC array. And it's actually the Germans that are doing this from the GeoMar Helmholtz Center for Ocean Research in Kiel at the Kiel University at their Department of Marine Sciences. And of course, the IMGV is involved, the National Institute of Geophysics and Volcanology in Italy, and they're also surveilling the supervolcano Campi Flegrei. News there, by the way, alarming data. I put the video in the end screen. And guys, do me a favor, please give this video an early like and hype. It doesn't cost you anything. It helps my channel. Share it with your friends. Leave me a comment. What do you think about Mount Etna? How dangerous is it really? So what's the cause of this slope movement? Well, primarily it's gravity. It's a huge part of the mountain, of the volcano. So they call it fault line. Along the fault line of this landslide, it's basically the boundary between the sliding flank and the stable slope. They have a total 5 transponder measuring stations there. So 3 on the sliding slope and 2 on the other side of the fault line, right? So that they see, okay, these stations, they remain in place. They're not sliding down, and the other ones, they're sliding down. So they can measure the difference. And how do they do this? It's interesting. I'll tell you, because I think you probably might be interested in this. So they're transmitting with each other. They're sending an acoustic signal back and forth with each other every 90 minutes. And since the speed of sound is known underwater, so we can calculate that. We know how sound moves underwater. The relative movements of the seabed can be determined with centimeter accuracy based on the time it takes the signal to travel. So this is how they measure what's happening what's happening on the slope that is underwater. But the interesting part is they also measured what's going on with a slope that is above the sea level. And what they found out, the slope that is above water moved in the same amount than it moved underwater. And the conclusion is it's one big dangerous flank, and it's huge, of Mount Etna that is moving downwards. And this movement, that's interesting. It can be compared to something a term that we usually use with earthquakes. The term is slow slip event. What we need to know is the slope is sliding due to gravity and not because of the ascent of magma. The ascent of magma and the eruptions, they're shaking the whole mountain. They're causing tremors and earthquakes. Of course, that can lead to further this instability and maybe trigger the whole collapse. And scientists make it clear, since it's moving as a whole, it's quite possible that it could suddenly slide, means suddenly collapse, which would trigger a tsunami across the whole Mediterranean. Across, you see how many coastlines there are, how many islands. But of course, they say they cannot predict when this is going to happen. That's why we need to keep a close eye on these large earthquakes that are happening there right now. We've seen it in Alaska, for example. That was a large earthquake, right? Magnitude 7+, but it has triggered a lot of landslides in the mountain. It was underneath the Hubbard Glacier. We still don't know how bad it actually was because it's covered in snow and ice. But I showed you the video. We've already seen so many mountaintops breaking off and rock slides, not avalanches, the whole mountain slides coming down. So now, earthquakes form at Mount Etna. Magnitude 3.3 is the one that sticks out at a depth of 9.5 kilometers. So that is in a range where it can shake that flank. Epicenter 2.1 kilometers west of Monte Minaro. Another earthquake, 5.1, I said it, west coast of Sicily. depth that was deeper, 53 kilometers. And now you might ask, are they related? Well, we can say that they're somewhat related. And the 5.1 was felt quite widely. It was felt in a radius of roughly almost like 390 miles, 495 kilometers. So you think, well, if you look at the map, are they related? Doesn't look like, but they are linked to the plate tectonics that are happening there in this area, because we have the Ionian plate that is basically sliding beneath the Caribbean plate, Calabrian plate, that area there, that's a subduction zone. And the subduction zones are always the ones that create volcanoes, and they create larger earthquakes. But we have to make one thing clear: Mount Etna is not really right on this border. So it's not a clear subduction zone volcano like on the west coast, for example, Mount Baker, Mount St. Helens, Mount Rainier, Mount Adams, all these, Mount Hood, right? Mount Etna is a little bit off. It lies at the boundary of the Ionian plate, and its influence by that's definitely for sure. Does this earthquake mean magma is rising from deeper depth and Etna is preparing for an even larger eruption? It has erupted quite a bit the last few days and weeks, right? It has given us quite impressive eruption images. It is uncertain what's happening right now, but it's certainly a possibility that Etna is preparing for something larger, because what has happened there right now, the magnitude 3.3 and the other earthquakes, this is somewhat a trend. We've seen several earthquakes on the western flank of Etna in the recent days. Depth, mostly the same, well, between like 6 to 7 miles depth, right? Roughly like 10 kilometers. And it is a cluster swarm of earthquakes. So whenever we see this at a volcano, the assumption is near that something is happening with the magma at the volcano, right? That it creates these earthquakes because magma is rising up, breaking rocks on its way to the surface. And we did have tremors below, right underneath the summit area of the volcano. So it seems, although Etna is erupting, sending lava out, it seems more magma wants still to come to the surface. So definitely they should be ready for the next level eruption that's happening there. And maybe it's even becoming more active than it used to be in the past few years, right? So, and if it does, of course, this puts more strain on that flank, which worries me way, way more than the eruption itself. I hope you liked that, guys. I hope you didn't forget, like and subscribe. Hype, share it with your friends, leave me a comment, and yeah, check out one of the videos here in the end screen. Interesting stuff, so much is happening. Thank you for your trust, watching my videos, being here on this channel. I thank you so much. Stay safe, be prepared. Click here, see you in a second. Bye-bye.